All right, good morning. And today, as always, my name is Yoshina Cobra Bradford with South Metro Democratic Women Council. And we are bringing you intimate videos from all of the candidates running in the runoff. We're happy that they have gone ahead and accepted these interviews and just letting you allow them to know them a little bit more personally. So we have today Sheriff Ted Jackson, and we have our interviewer who'll be Sydney Jakes. I'll go ahead and get us started, and Sydney will fire off these questions for Sheriff. And let's get to know Sheriff Ted Jackson. Good morning. Mr.
Uh,
Jackson, if you could start off for me and just give us an overview of what your job entails as sheriff. What does it mean to be sheriff of Fulton County?
okay, good morning and thanks for having me. I'll start with this is my fourth term I'm running for, so I've been sheriff since January 1st, 2009, but I was interim sheriff from July 26th to December 31st in 2004, appointed by the governor as interim. So the sheriff's position is different than most positions, and there are 159 sheriffs in the state of Georgia. Fulton County is the largest county, and so the sheriff of Fulton County is known as the high sheriff. That's in the Constitution. I have nothing to do with that. But the sheriff's position is unique. Our main goal, obviously, is to maintain a safe and secure jail. We also provide security for the courthouse. We're involved in protecting the county and law enforcement issues, and we try to do education to prevent and educate the community on crime. So to make it simple, those are the missions of the sheriff's office, but when you break it down, it's really complicated and very involved.
Okay. And why should the people reelect you to the office of Fulton County Sheriff?
Well, we have some unique programs within the sheriff's office. First of all, I'll start with the jail. Our jail, when I became sheriff, was under federal oversight with a federal consent decree because of conditions, overcrowdedness, and just the overall structure of the jail and the population. So we worked through the consent decree, and April 23rd, 2015, we were released from federal oversight. So that means that we were doing our job in accordance with the federal court, and we were relieved from the consent decree. And obviously, all that we do, we work in conjunction with the Board of Commissioners. We all work together. We have a great relationship working together. In the jail, we decided we needed some programs. And so we started first with the GED program, and we tested 995 inmates, 65% read on a 3rd to 8th grade level, which meant that we could do a GED program, but we had issues with pre-literacy. So we started a pre-literacy program. Then we hired the former chef of the airport Hilton to come in and run the kitchen. And I got to give him a shout out. Every 6 months, he gets a 100 rating. I don't know of any restaurant where you can find that every 6 months. So we started a culinary program. And the reason, and I'll talk about the programs, but the reason we decided to start programs because people make mistakes when they're growing up. They don't have the proper attention in the environment or at home. And so we tried to fill the void, and we started a culinary program in 2010. And we run the cycle every 12 weeks. And at the end of the graduation, we try to get jobs and give them certificates so they don't come back. And I listen to them. And what the common theme is, nobody's cared about them for some of them, the ones we select. We have a K-9 cellmate program. That program is done by volunteers. I'll give Miss Susan Jacobs Meadows a shout out. She came to us 8 years ago and wanted to start a K-9 cellmate program. And we did start it. And she actually brings in volunteers. They select the dogs for the programs. They interview the inmates that we select. They put them together for 8 weeks. And for 8 years, we've done this. And at the end, the graduation, the inmates talk and the dogs are adopted. They get a certificate. And lately, I'm going to speed it up because I know I only have 3 hours, but lately, what we try to do is do something with reentry and recidivism. So in 2016, we were one of 4 counties, but the only jail to get a grant from the U.S. Department of Justice to work with the inmates inside. Those are dealing with mental health, alcohol, and drug addiction. And then when they're released, we have a support system for them to give them housing and jobs. And last year, it was a 3-year grant. And we did so well last year, we were renewed for another 3 years. And it's a model for the country because we're talking about criminal justice reform and smart reentry, recidivism. We have a model for the country. And it's gotten not only for the country, but also the United Kingdom has reached out to us to bring our program to Europe. And in addition to that, last year, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services saw what we were doing with the U.S. Department of Justice and what they were doing. They were waiting for the inmates to be released, drug addiction, mental health, alcohol addiction. They were trying to work with them when they were released, and they saw that it was too late. So we have the only jail in the nation with a grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to work with the inmates inside so that when they're released, the Department of Health and Human Services now has a head start on them. So we try to work within the jail, and I'll throw in the pandemic. We've done very well with the pandemic. COVID-19 is a real problem in federal prisons and other jails and prisons, but we've set a model for that also. In the law enforcement arena, to protect the county, we decided there are 19 police departments in the county, along with federal and state agencies, and we have a relationship with all of them. We meet, we talk about issues that are common to protect the county. So what we decided to go a step further, since we don't have the staffing to do as much as we want, we have deputies on the FBI Gang Task Force, the U.S. Marshals Southeast Fugitive Task Force, the DEA Drug Task Force, the High Intensity Drug Czar Task Force. So that way we can protect the county and Homeland Security, I almost forgot, Homeland Security, sex trafficking. Those are the major issues facing our county. And so while you don't see us out front, we're working with these agencies to protect the county, and we've been there. On the court side, we had the worst tragedy in a courthouse, March 11, 2005, when a judge was killed on the bench, a stenographer in the courtroom, a deputy, and then a customs agent later on. So as a result of that, we had to come up with a security plan. There was no security plan. March 2005, after that, the legislators passed a law that you must have a security plan for security of the courthouse signed by the sheriff and the chief judge. We didn't have a plan. So we were three years behind the 8 ball. We put a plan together, and then we worked with the county commissioners and with the courts to establish the state-of-the-art security for the courthouse. And so we've overcome those security issues. In addition, community outreach, we need to have a role in the community. Our job, we believe in the sheriff's office, is to try to keep young people out of the system. And if they get in the system, work with them so they don't come back. Makes a big difference, yes. Yes.
And just to piggyback on what you've already said, if you could briefly just tell me, how does the point system, I know that's already in legislation, the point system for teens, those, I guess, at a certain age. Are there going to be any changes to look at that policy, and how can that be, I don't want to say corrected, because I think going into it, it was a great idea, but also you do have some of the teens committing or reoffending the same thing, knowing that they have a certain point and point system. They can continue to do this until the end of the year. They'll relax a little bit and then start back over. So how do we get tougher on the crime? Or is that something that does not have to deal with the sheriff's department?
Well, it doesn't really deal with us because that's the juvenile. But what we do is try to work with them. So I'll talk about some of the programs that we're working with the young people to try to get them to engage in good behavior. I believe the legislators and juvenile court are working to work out some changes, and the sheriff's office, all we can do is have input. But I'll talk about community outreach. Community outreach, we try to reach out to young people, seniors, and the homeless. We have 165 chaplains that are part of our outreach program. We have 100 in the jail working with the inmates, but they're separate from the outreach chaplains, 165. And one of the programs we have is called the Youth Intervention Program. The Youth Intervention Program is for 10 to 20-year-olds. And basically it is intervention. We bring them in with their parents. And one of the things we need to get a hold of in society is a lot of times we want to blame the young people for bad behavior, but sometimes based on what we see, the parents are responsible for the bad behavior. And so in our programs, we include the parents because they need help, and we have experts to talk to them because they make the difference, because they mentor and they set the tone for raising a child. So in our youth intervention program, I meet with them at 8:30, third Wednesday of every month. We've done this program for 10 years, and we talk about the behavior issues that the parents are involved with. And then we take them to the courtroom where they meet with a judge, prosecutor, and a public defender to explain the system. That's intervention. So they know when they're, I'm starting to get an echo, is that all right? Okay. So when they get in the system, they know what's going to happen to them. And then we take them to the jail and let them talk to the inmates. And so at the end of the day, we have them write an essay, what have you learned, how you're going to change your behavior. And from that essay, we can determine if they have writing problems or reading problems, and the parents can work on that. We have a program for 6th to 12th graders called HYPE, Helping Youth Prosper and Evolve, where we bring in experts to talk with them in workshops on behavior. We have a program that we start with 6-year-olds to 14-year-olds called Bicycle Rodeo Pedestrian Safety. And the point I'm making is we're trying to reach young people to show them that law enforcement is not the enemy. We're your friend. And, you know, in a bicycle rodeo, we actually give out bicycles that are donated. And so for a young person, 6 years old or between 6 and 14, they'll remember where they got the first bicycle from, because some of them come, they don't have bicycles. And then we work with the homeless. The second Saturday in August every year, this is our 10th year, we work with the homeless in front of the courthouse to give them items that they need and also to set them up with social services. We did HIV testing one year. We test blood pressure and whatever, because we want the people that come in contact with us to know that we're human, that we care about them, and we want to work with them.
And excuse me, Mr. Sheriff Jackson, not to interrupt you, but I would like to move to the next question. You mentioned the extensive community outreach that you do. Would you further explain why you are the best candidate for the job?
First of all, my background, I've got 32 years with the FBI, 22 years in executive positions. So I have leadership, integrity, and honesty that I bring to the table. When I retired from the FBI, I became interim sheriff, so I know what goes on in the sheriff's office. This is my 12th year, and we've made a difference. We're respected as a professional organization. I talked about some things we need to do, mental health. We need to improve on our recidivism, reentry. We're starting that up again. And we got the pandemic. The pandemic is causing real problems for society, and we have not become part of the problem for society because of what we do inside. And when the pandemic is over and we get back to normal, we need a sheriff that was here before the pandemic, can get us through it, because we've closed down the courthouse. We've got restrictions in the jail. And when we reopen, we need to have somebody that knows what they're doing. Additionally, in law enforcement, we're probably going to be looking at some changes in law enforcement coming about as some of the issues in society. And we need a sheriff that knows what they're doing. And I will not be on the first day on the job training.
You mentioned specific issues that need to be addressed, such as mental health and reentry back into the system. Do you have any specific solutions to those issues, those problem areas?
Yeah, I talked about the reentry grants. That's one part of it. The mental health part, about 8 years ago, we sat down with Emory University in the Fulton County Jail, where the males are. They actually are in the jail, the interns and the doctors in the jail, counseling and treating inmates, trying to make them competent to stand trial or find bedding for them or housing, which is a big problem for us. A few years ago, we took over the Union City Jail, and we found that yesterday our population was 2,447 inmates. 21% have extreme mental health issues. So that's an issue that we shouldn't have in the jail. And so in Union City, the county and the sheriff's office came together and started a program for the women. And these programs are new, and as we go into the future, I believe that society is going to recognize that jails and law enforcement are involved in areas where we shouldn't be. And so, to me, mental health is a major issue. We had opioid problem. We've been able to get through that. And those are issues that not only we should be looking at, but the rest of the nation as well.
There's a new policy push for defunding the police. Do you have an opinion with regard to that?
Yes, that's a real critical issue because public safety is very important. And if the police are understaffed to start with, and then you defund them, the neighborhoods become unsafe. And so it's a discussion that everybody's got to talk about. Now, some of the reasons for doing it, I agree with. We have to do something in society to deal with education, to deal with poverty, and to deal with mental health. And I think more funding needs to go there, but I don't believe the solution is to defund the police, because then you make the communities unsafe. And then when you look at communities where you need police, if they're unfunded, you end up being a victim of a crime. And so those are discussions that should be really thoughtful and laid out. And if you can find a police department that's overstaffed, that has too much money, then I would say do that. But you're not going to find too many of those because we're underfunded and understaffed to start with.
Is there anything else you would like to highlight as to why you should be reelected to your office?
Well, I think we talk about the mission of the sheriff's office. Public safety is a major part of it. In our county, we have 19 police departments, and we also have federal and state agencies working in the county. Because of the leadership of the sheriff's office, we're facilitators to protecting the county. In order to do that, you have to have law enforcement experience. And your experience can't be coming on the job at a time like this, when there's a lot of unrest. There are a lot of issues in our community. The economy's bad. The pandemic's getting worse. You don't need to experiment with somebody coming in with no experience at all. And you need someone with proven. You can have some experience and some leadership, but it's got to be proven. Proven leadership, integrity, honesty, experience are all keys to what's needed in this position. And, people are going to take, and I like this forum because otherwise, it could get real nasty and people make up stuff. But for me, all you have to do is go on the website, reelect sheriff.tjackson.com, because when you have something written, it's true, generally. And based on my years in law enforcement and at the sheriff's office, I've always tried to be transparent. If you're wrong, you admit it. And so I get commonly from the press that I'm boring. I'm boring because I tell the truth. I'm transparent. We don't hide anything. If we're wrong, we're going to admit it. And that's the leadership I think that's needed in this position. If you look back at the history of the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, there's been scandals, there have been controversies, there have been issues that detract to what the Sheriff's Office is all about. And I can say for the 12 years I've been here, no scandal, no controversy. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. I get sued. Everybody gets sued. But you look at the results of what the suits are and the results of them. So I think I've done a really outstanding job, not by myself, by the staff. We have an outstanding staff that took a while to develop. They're doing a great job. You don't see me because I believe in pushing people out front. I'm the one that's going to take all the blame, but the credit goes to those that deserve it. And I think that's a quality of what we call 21st century leadership, especially with the new employees we get. They deserve the credit. They ask a lot of questions. They don't take anything for granted. So we have to change our style. And I've learned to change my style. I believe in participatory management. The management by bureaucracy and fear, it just doesn't work anymore. You got to talk with people, make them feel comfortable, and treat everybody like they're part of a family.
And thank you for that. And just to kind of wrap up, we have about 8 minutes left, but I do have a question from, a perspective of the younger generation. And just like I asked one of your opponents the other day, is that do we have should there be a time limit, or is there a time when we should know when elected officials should step down out of office? Not to say it's your time to step down, but when do you know that, and when do we start to groom our own people in our community for those positions? So just like we recently had two legendary people pass, and how do we continue to groom our people, young people who are hungry like myself, to get involved and get engaged for these seats in these positions so that they can learn to be leaders as well?
And what we do here in the sheriff's office, we mentor and help people get to that point. And then we, as leaders, we need to know when it's time to go. And this is not the time to go because we have so much turmoil. And if you leave at the wrong time and the wrong person comes in, you have more turmoil. So you have to look at the totality of the environment at the time. Just to push somebody out because they've gotten too old, you got to overlook that. You got to look at their health and what they bring to the table. If they're still working hard, they're still making positive improvements for the community and part of the community, and look at the overall task of what they're doing. Just don't push somebody out because you feel it's just time for change. Look at what that means, because the wrong kind of change can be a disaster. And if you have someone that you know has done the job, can continue the job, and is mentoring people for what you're saying, give them a chance to do that. Don't destroy all that. And I mentioned, we have great people in here. We've mentored for the future, but now is not the time because of all the issues that are going on in society and a pandemic that we still don't know what's going to happen. You know, they're talking about a vaccine being ready by the early part of next year. You know, in the meantime, you have to prepare for that. And bringing somebody in with no experience at all will cause so much confusion and disarray. And then the other thing you got to understand, in any type of agency, when somebody goes out, somebody comes in, they bring in people that are inexperienced, and it's just not the time for that. So I tell young people, yeah, you're right at the appropriate time, but look at the environment and what we're going through here now. This is not the time for change.
All right. Thank you so much, Sheriff Ted Jackson. Thank you for spending this morning with us and dedicating some time aside. Again, South Metro Democratic Women, Yoshina Colbert Bradford and Sydney Jakes. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. And before we close out, is there any lasting word, statement, anything you want to say to the citizens?
Well, I want to thank them for giving me this opportunity. That means that I ran for office. I was interim, and the first time I ran, there were 10 candidates, and I survived that. And each time I run, 3 out of 4 has been a runoff, and people giving me a chance. I appreciate that. And I work hard for all of you. No matter what you hear, the truth is I work hard. And I'm concerned about the citizens first, their public safety, improving on our young people because they need all the help they can get. We also have a senior safety tips program. We work with the seniors as well because seniors are preyed on, P-R-E-Y. And the respect that seniors had in the past, we don't see that today. And people need to be aware of their surroundings, and they need to be aware that we're here to help them. We go to schools, we work with young people, and we work with the homeless folks. Matter of fact, sometimes I'll run into them and they'll say, hey, when are you doing your program again? And then people that come through our programs, the young people in youth intervention and so on, and the ones that come out of jail, when they leave with a good taste in their mouth. They know that somebody cares and the sheriff's office cares. And so I hope that they'll look at my record, and based on my record, I'll get another term to finish what we need to do.
All right. Thank you so much, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you all, and be safe. Thank you.
You as well.
As well. Bye-bye.